Okay,
There it is.
I'm recording. We're good.
Pastor, go ahead.
And then I'm just going by the email addresses. Stir FD2, who would that be? Not here?
I believe that's Stu, Dennis.
Okay, Stuart, okay. I don't see him here. Mark? Mark
Abadi.
Abbott?
It's me.
Abadi, yes, he's here.
Tom Papaleo. Ron is here. Bill Sanders?
Yes.
Michael Walker?
Yes.
Liz Beltorres?
Here, yes, representing
Jason Melito?
Here.
Arlene?
Here.
Lisette? Ben DOVT? River Edge Schools?
She's here.
Joe, I'm here.
Patrick?
Here, here.
Yes. Neil Carroll?
Absent.
I think Father Sheehan. Michael, I don't see here.
Absent.
Julia,
Here.
James. Not here. All out 20. Dennis Tabis, myself, yes. Russ Van Wettering, yes.
Present.
Steve Sweet. The Rabbi at Avodat Shalom. Alice Rushforth, not here, I don't see. DGROTHEER at St. Peter's. I'm not sure who that is at St. Peter's. And EMDECELLE at Yahoo. Okay, so you got that. All right, that's it.
Okay, so we have a record now of who's absent and we'll be able to reach out to them. Ron, you may begin.
Okay, I'm going to add something to the agenda that I wasn't able to, and it's a reverse 911. That'll be just another topic of conversation. I'm going to use the word epiphany a couple of times when I'm talking. I'm going to go back to the first meeting that we had. I think that was my first epiphany. I was supposed to have a meeting and I had no idea what to talk about, except that we were going to have a meeting and it was something that had never been actually done. We always had the committee, but never had a meeting. And then I had an epiphany as to what to talk about. And I started with a story, and it had to do with a blizzard that was not expected, that left 3 feet of snow and knocked out everything. And I noted that most residents were going to get by, some better than others. The ones with generators, they were probably going to do better than the ones that didn't have generators. And then we had another segment of the population that would not have been in as good shape. And I labeled them the at-risk. And the at-risk were the people are residents of an elderly age that were either living independently or with AIDS, or people with some serious health issues. The other area that I addressed in that initial meeting was why the religious entities, the houses of worship and the school superintendents were selected for the citizen committee members. And that was essentially because I referred to them as being tentacles that to the community, another means of communicating with the residents in town. We really no longer had the town news, which really was pretty good until they changed. And this just was another option to reach the community. And we also had a Korean liaison. We have a fairly significant Korean population, and we decided that it would be a good idea to have somebody who represented that group because it was significant in size. So And it actually reaped some benefits, because at the time we started, we had 6 people that were on an at-risk list. We currently have about 85. And I think that's actually significant. I'll leave there, and I'm going to start with the reports. I've sent everybody reports that I sent out twice. One was right after the onset of the pandemic, and then there was an update. I'm not going to go through all the reports because you have those. I want to just zero in on some areas that I think that were significant to me. And right after the pandemic started, I learned very quickly that we had a new at-risk resident. And that resident was an individual or family that were experiencing economic problems, which would translate into food insecurities. And while we didn't have something in place, at least I had some route to go to try to make some determination as to the extent of the problem. And that, once again, was going to the houses of worship, going to the schools, and trying to make some determination as to what kind of a problem we actually had. I also contacted Meals on Wheels. We have about 11 or 12 shut-ins in this town. And I went to various borough entities in order to try to make some determination as to the extent of the problem and to see if there was some means of providing some assistance. And this would have to have been on a volunteer basis. I determined that we were not in bad shape. In my examination of what we did have, we did come up with a couple of individuals that were part of the senior bus program, and arrangements were made for them to get some food from the St. Peter Pantry. So that I thought that had worked out somewhat well. I say somewhat well, essentially because I wasn't entirely comfortable that I really had a handle on what was going on in town. So I'm going to go to a conversation that I had with one of the committee members, Julia Lee. I had a conversation with her concerning a library issue. And during that conversation, I had, I'm going to call it an eye-opening moment, because I asked her about the subgroup which she's attached to, the Korean subgroup, and I asked her if she was aware of any problems with that subgroup. And she said, no, I'm not sure how many members are in her subgroup. It's a PTO subgroup, but there are a number of members. So I felt, oh, I'm reaching at least some portion of the community. And then she mentions that there happens to be an Indian sub-PTO group, of the elementary school, and a Chinese group. And she provided me with the contact information. And I reached out to the individuals there and found out that there was another Indian subgroup that was associated with the high school. And I reached out to that group, and at that point started to get the idea that there might be other groups in town. And another group that I reached out to at that time was the Knights of Columbus. The Knights in Columbus and the high school Indian subgroup, which was run by a pretty, I'm going to butcher her name, the Hardawal, were even willing to assist with the food, and was able to actually I reached out to Pat Fletcher, and there were a couple of families that were interested in accepting help, and we were able to give them some help. And I believe there was a family from a Cherry Hill school that we were able to help. I mentioned the word epiphany because during this, I should also add in there that I then, before I go on to the next part, I then started to realize that there might be other groups. Well, we now currently have the PTOs from Roosevelt, Cherry Hill, and Riverdale. We have a Boy Scout troop and 2 Girl Scout troops. I'm trying to remember, there's some other group that are now part of that, what I'm going to call them, the small organized groups. I think there's a group from St. Peter's. And so I'm going to guess that we have perhaps maybe 600 people that we actually could reach through those subgroups. And I at that point actually was comfortable about the extent of the problem in River Edge. So, which brings me very quickly to the topic of conversation. And that is where the second epiphany comes along. While I'm talking with Julia Lee, I realize that an area that was of great concern to me when I was the police chief was a blackout. This is where the lights go out and everything else goes out. And during the time that I was chief, we had Hurricane Floyd, and we actually did have a blackout. I think 2003, we had a blackout. And my biggest concern was how do I keep the police department functioning? And I just came to the realization that if we had a couple of small generators, we could keep our portable radios charged. We'd have communication at least with the patrol cars, and we probably could do something to access the gas at the DPW. So we'd have a means of keeping the patrol cars running and having communications. The missing piece was communication with the residents. The best we were going to be able to do was ride around with the loudspeaker going and use that as a means of communication. And I just had to leave it go there. It really wasn't acceptable because for the most part, when you're sending messages via that loudspeaker system, most people don't understand what has been said, and they're going to try and call to find out what was going on. And as far as coming up with some code for the residents to use if they had a problem, like let's just say putting a white towel in your front door, that would work for a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe even 6 months. But eventually, everyone would forget that the white towel meant anything. What I now had in front of me was an opportunity. I'm going to call it a telephone chain or Paul Revere type of communication. All these individual groups, I know where the representatives of these groups live. We actually can send somebody to their house and ask them to pass along information. We can use our houses of worship to pass along, or at least maybe use their billboards for communication purposes. I'm not going to reach the whole town, but through these groups, I'm going to reach maybe 600 people who might pass on the information to somebody else. I think that we'd also would probably be able to take those small generators and perhaps be able to access the signboard in front of Borough Hall, another place to provide information. This is an area I would like to take up with the various commanders of our emergency services to explore even further. But I feel at this point, this would be a great starting point for what we might be able to do in a situation where the lights went out. And I'm sure that there, as I said, I think there may be other means that we possibly could use, but I'm just tossing that out. I don't know if anybody has any ideas right now at the table. If you do, shoot them. And I just like to open up the door to a discussion on that right now. Anybody? I do think that, no, I have one area, Mark Abadi. You hear me, Mark?
I got you.
Okay. During the time when we were trying to determine the extent of the problem in town, Mark was reaching out to the managers and superintendents of our garden departments. And I venture to say we probably have maybe in excess of 1,000 people in those garden departments, maybe. Would you
I would
think?
think even a little more.
Well, they are another means of communicating something in a situation where the lights go out. So I think we have at least a starting point for communicating with with our residents. And so I'll just leave it there before I go into the reverse 911. I'd like to know if anybody would like to, contribute anything. Anybody?
Chief, you want to make mention of the of our oxygen dependent residents too, that became another subgroup that we needed to stay in contact with, especially oxygen.
Yeah, when we started with the at-risk list, putting that together, that, as I indicated initially, we were looking for individuals of an advanced age who were living with AIDS, living alone, with serious health problems. Well, then you have those with real serious health problems, and those are our residents who have life support systems in their house. They're in a little bit different category than the other at-risk residents. When I was talking about the other at-risk residents, I was basically talking about somebody that maybe if you had a sustained power outage, you'd start to check on the next day. There was no urgency to reach out to them immediately. And the situation would probably dictate when you might start checking on those residents, but it certainly wouldn't, there would be no reason to reach out to them immediately. However, somebody on a life support system might need you very quickly. And I realized that we had some residents. The fire department was aware of some. They had some. Our town nurse had maybe one or two. The police department was aware. And everybody that we could put together on a list, it seemed to be very old list. And Sergeant Abadi started contacting or started checking on the people that we did have on the list. And for the most part, those people were no longer with us. But what we did come up with was probably, was it 11 or 12 people?
Initially, we had about 11. We're down to 7
You're familiar
right now.
with it, though. Because Mark, he actually put a list together that was current and actually went to speak with every one of these families. And we have been keeping that list current since, I guess it's over a year. And the police department implemented a protocol that I believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that they had two categories, a level 1 and a level 2. And if somebody was put in a level 1 category, that within a half hour after a power failure in an area where they lived, that a police officer was to go to the house and check on them to see if they, how they were doing. If they were in a level 2, they had to be checked on within an hour. And I'm not sure how many, but I think that they've already there's been a few power outages, and I think that it's already in motion. Is that right, Mark?
That's correct. So basically, level one residents on oxygen are those that don't have any type of backup power. Level two, which I believe is about 3 of the 7 that we have on the list, have backup power, where they have a portable generator or a home generator. They would be level 2, and level 1 is our biggest concern. And so what we do, and actually another thing that we have done in the last year is we've done a preemptive basically attack, and we contact the resident. We know a storm's coming in, we'll contact them directly and find out and just let them know and reassure them that we're here, that we're going to show up. And we have listed what they have in the house, whether it's extra oxygen tanks or battery operated or electric operated oxygen machine. And it reassures them, because if you've ever been in a position where you were lacking oxygen, you can understand the fear that it creates. So we do a preemptive strike. We'll contact everybody on the list, generators, and just to reassure them that we know that we'll be contacted through us or the fire department. We're able to supply a generator to keep their oxygen flowing.
Okay. Anybody else want to contribute to this area? Because I'll move on to the reverse 911. I recently sent out a Nixle message concerning reverse 911, and actually Councilwoman Kaufman has actually been instrumental in a couple of areas, and I'm having a conversation with her, and I mentioned reverse 911, and she is asking me, what is that? What exactly is, I don't remember exactly how the conversation started, but the reality of it was that she wasn't getting reverse 911 messages. Those are the telephone recorded messages that are put out by the police department, and they're usually in emergency situations or situations where they want everybody in town to be aware of something. And she wasn't aware of it. And if she wasn't aware of it, then how many other residents were not aware of it? And as a result of doing that, a Nixle message was created and sent out, and the new borough website had information on it concerning reverse 911. And she worked with Sergeant Abadi to come up with a form that could be utilized by residents to sign up for the reverse 911. And I think, again, Sergeant Abadi would have to correct me, but I think we had 60 people send in requests.
Yeah, we're up to 70.
Up to 70 people have requested to be put on the reverse 911 list. And if 70 people requested that as a result of one Nixle message, I'm going to guess that there are a lot of more people in town that are not getting the reverse 911 messages. And the fact that they're sent out, very sporadically, it's not something that somebody's getting every week. So it's kind of easy for somebody not to realize that they're not getting messages. In any event, I plan on sending out another Nixle message, and this sometime in the near future. And I'm going to ask if our houses of worship and the school superintendents wouldn't mind sending, utilizing their email chains and sending out the message that we had sent out to the residents. I'll send you the message that we sent out if you would be willing to, or consider sending that out through your emails.
Of
School
course,
super,
not a problem.
okay. I will send you the message that was sent out, and perhaps we can elevate that number from 70 to maybe 170, or maybe more than that.
We'll be happy to help, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, First Congregational Church, Russ Van Wittering here. You can send that to me. I'll make sure our administrative assistant gets it and sends it out, please.
Okay, thank you. That's it. That's unless anybody has something they'd like to bring up, my report is completed.
Chief, I have a quick question regarding the high-risk individuals, community residents who need backup generators. Has Keen Power Products been brought on board, or Ace Hardware, Palmer's at all, to help with any of that in dire emergencies?
Yeah, I actually have talked with Chuck Keen and Dave Palmer, and if we had a horrific situation where we needed additional it would be additional small generators, but yes, I have, and they would be quite willing to help us out.
Yeah, I believe that was brought up in a past meeting, so thank you. I just wanted to double check on that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, as far as those reverse 911 forms, I have one sitting right here in my living room that I haven't filled out yet. So I'm sure you'll be getting a lot more in response to your first Nixle.
Good. But I'm going to wait a bit, and I'm going to send another one out, and we'll see if we can get that number up a little bit more. Mayor, that's that. On my end, I'm finished.
So I know we're not all represented, but a couple of things I just want to ask the committee. If the committee can just let us know in regards to how we've handled the pandemic up to this point, and we have probably a good 2 to 6 months of the pandemic in front of us. Is there anything that we're not doing that you think we should be doing, communication-wise, or meeting-wise, or in things that we could be doing, actions? And is there anything that you think we're doing well so that we know we should keep doing those? So if there's any input from anyone on that, that would be good to hear. And if it's not, that's okay too.
I actually have one thing that I was waiting to say, and one is a thank you, keep doing it, and one is just a general question. The thank you and keep doing it is that the local River Edge support has not diminished in any way. In terms of the temple, and the lieutenant stopped by today to introduce himself to me, which was fantastic. And so I really am so happy that all of that community stuff has continued instead of gone away during the pandemic, because I know that takes a lot of creativity and follow through and everything else, and it's very appreciated. The question is there anything tied to the township level and the major COVID related stuff moving forward, particularly vaccines? Like, is that all county and state level and the townships are not involved, or does River Edge have an active role in the process?
Arlene, do you want to address that, or do you want me?
I got it. No, we don't have to do it county level or statewide. Mid-Bergen will contract. We will probably not have it at a site in River Edge, although that's debatable. I may get some vaccine to take care of some of the homebound. Vaccine is not in anybody's possession yet. Hopefully, maybe by next week or the week after. If it is held in Leonia, they're going to try to do a little cluster, almost like the pods, to get it out. However, this, and I want to talk to Julia and Dara at the library, a lot of, you got to go on the website, and it's a very, easy to navigate, but I've spoken to a lot of seniors. They're calling me every day. They want their name on a list. They want to know how to access the COVID vaccine. And a lot of them don't have computers, and it's a very easy site to navigate. But if you don't have a computer and you don't have an email, they're kind of left out there. So that's another important thing with the Nixle and the reverse 911 is when I know when we'll have some and how we're going to distribute it, I can reach out to them. For the most part, I know who they are. I know who's, in their homes. And that's why the at-risk list is important. Because there are some that are not going to get to a site. They're not going to get to a site for the vaccine. So, we won't be doing it per se in River Edge, but there's a good possibility I can get some vaccine to at least get the homebound. And we'll work on how we can get them to a site to get the vaccine.
Arlene, Dennis to be the First Congregational Church. Is there any thought or plan to offer resources for those persons who cannot access the COVID site to help them, to make connection for them, be it through the library or
right? That's that. I
churches?
want to talk to the library because a lot of the seniors are connected there. Even if you do know in your houses of worship who needs a little assistance, if somebody could, I have spoken to some of the families that are out of state that call me a lot to tell them go online and register your parent. And, as it gets rolled out, sadly, there's vaccine out there and we're not doing it as quick as we should. We were estimating doing, when we get rolling, 300 to 500 in a day. So, and that will be very localized. New Milford, Leonia, those are under Mid-Bergen's towns. And there's nurses. These towns have nurses, a couple of them. So, we'll pitch in like we did for H1N1 and we will get that vaccine out. But if the houses of worship can help people access online.
I confess that we as a house of worship have not gotten word out that we can help people register. Jim, it might be good.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. So we're allowed to register on behalf of someone else.
Yeah, you need their information.
And we just put their phone number in there.
Have an email, which
Great.
to me is just absolutely crazy.
But we have we have more than 10 people who don't have an email.
You have a wonderful member of your congregation who is so computer savvy. I'd like her to give lessons. She's just a wonderful, wonderful woman.
But yeah, Dennis, I'm definitely gonna say that we can help people register if they're having trouble doing it themselves. In fact, we're gonna change that in our weekly announcements right now.
And we might, one of the things that has really not been active through the pandemic has been the Riverdale clergy. We, I think, have gone quite silent in ways as we've tried to meet the needs of our communities, but it might be good for people like me to commit to trying to activate that, especially for the COVID registration, the vaccine registration. So I will commit to making some contacts.
Good, that'll be really helpful.
I'll follow up with you on that.
The numbers are increasing. Sadly, last week was a pretty heavy week and this week isn't looking much better. So hopefully after, by the end of January, we'll start to level off a little bit.
So just to talk to you a little bit about the vaccines, I was talking to Rebecca Schwartz in the governor's office today. She had reached out to me about an email that I had sent her about a week ago regarding the vaccines. And she told me that there is a very good chance in the next 2 to 3 days that they will be probably moving to 1B, and they will be reassessing who is in 1B. Now, of course, teachers and police officers and firefighters were in 1B. They moved firefighters and police officers to 1A, which I think is the right decision. And there were people over 75 in 1B, but I think they're going to widen 1B up even more. So that announcement hopefully will be coming from the governor's office before the end of the week. I don't know if that's going to happen, but she had felt that it would in the conversation I had with her. And she had told me that though I shouldn't announce it on Facebook, I could mention it at this meeting, that there is a high probability that 1B will either be opened or an announcement of it being opened will come by Friday. And it will be reconfigured to some degree. I was in another meeting with the county superintendent, and he was concerned about some people cutting the line. Some people saying that what had actually happened last week is an individual who does the HVAC for a doctor's office showed up and said, well, I work for a doctor's office and therefore I should be in 1A. And the governor's office is looking at that sort of problem. But as you also all know, there's a limited number of vaccines. And so the governor's office wanted also for the mayors to be aware of that. And I was in a meeting this morning with all the mayors of Bergen County, and that came up. But in addition, there's also a concern that I wanted to bring to this body of food insecurity. Bergen County's two major groups are Hunger Free New Jersey and Center for Food Action, CFANJ.org. And they're reporting that their numbers have skyrocketed, that they've doubled what they normally do last year, and they're expecting double this year. So they're wondering if our churches and our community groups can't, make a better effort. And that presentation was made by Commissioner Tracy Zor, formerly Freeholder. They've changed their names. And so I'm going to be looking into that a little bit more. They're going to be sending me some more data, and we're going to disseminate that data to this group. I'm going to be talking to Jason Melito, our superintendent. One of the things they need is they need fresh foods. They need other things that accidentally hit a button. They need mayonnaise. They need things different from what might people normally think that they need, feminine products and stuff like that. And they also need they're looking to have maybe DPWs from around Bergen County help move what they are receiving, because they've gotten several grants, and so we're going to look into see how we can help with that. So hopefully I'll get some information from the Municipal League and from and state, and I will be sharing that information with this group. So I wanted to report on that. Is there anybody else who, Pastor?
Tom, just to mention in that same vein, First Congregational Church has just recently received a grant to begin what we're working on now. It isn't in place yet, trying to sense the need as well, but to establish a one evening a week soup kitchen that during the COVID period would be a pick up and go situation, and a bread making ministry as well. The United Church of Christ, the UCC, has given us a grant to begin that, to begin pilot. We haven't received final funds yet, but hopefully that will happen within the next 2 months.
Pastor DeBest, I understand what soup kitchen is, but you used another term, bread something?
Yeah, a bread making ministry that we intend to longer term establish a bread making group that would be the bread making would be available to with the soups initially, but also to be resourcing families around the basic breads as well. I'm just a pastor. I know nothing about baking, so I'm a bit clueless, but they see those two being wrapped in with each other. Also working a little bit with Family Promise and the meals program to get this meal program in with that as well. So but again, it's in the planning stages right now.
Okay, great. Anyone else want to offer a comment, a concern? Superintendent Fletcher.
For Mayor, Chief, Arlene, I volunteered Riverdale through our community, our county office of education as a site for vaccine if you need it. Both my nurses have volunteered and to administer vaccines, so you have some resources here which are available if need be. For those of you who don't know, This may be the last time that we'll be joining, or that Dr. Bendove will be joining us.
Yeah.
She is going to be retiring shortly, and I think we all want to wish her well and thank her for her service to River Edge over the last 14 years, 12 years?
Almost 11,
Okay.
but
And then, Mr. Mayor, I apologize, I have to join another meeting at 5 o'clock, but
Go
I
ahead.
also want to say that the last few months have been very trying for schools. And if we didn't have Arlene as a resource, I know I would be crazy. My cell phone, I don't even have to dial her number. I just think it and it goes there. And she answers all the time and has provided great advice. So Arlene, thank you for your help during the course of this time.
You are
Thank you,
welcome.
Superintendent.
if
Yes,
I may,
Superintendent Bendove.
yes, if I may, Patrick, thank you so much. I was waiting till everybody was done. Our nurses will be available as well, and our site if needed for sure. I can't emphasize enough how difficult things have been in the last, I'm going to say almost a year. And I'm sure the same as Patrick, we are dealing with camps. One of them wants to have the kids in school all the time, every day, all day. The other camp doesn't think it's safe to have kids in school at all. And then there is everybody in between. And I'm entertaining the communication from all of them at all times, day, night, weekend. And we're hoping to pull through this. I want to set things up as best I can for March 1st. My decision came when I realized that there will never be a good time to do this. I was planning on doing it the end of last year, but that was possible. I didn't want to leave people without a plan. So we're in the same situation and we're working very hard on it. Arlene, the mayor, chief, Walker at this point, every agency of the town has been so very helpful to us. I know that everyone in the River Edge School community is grateful for all of your communications and for all of your help, for all of your support throughout, not just the pandemic, but the years before that. And I just want to echo what was said by the minister. It was somebody, pastor, I think, said that. When I came to River Edge 11 years ago, there was a very active group of clergy, and we enjoyed meeting with each other twice a year or so, and we were speaking about the things that we all had in common, and it was, I think, helpful to all of us. And over the years, it dropped off. It kept going for a while, dropped off. We tried to resurrect it, didn't work so well. But if I can just recommend it, I know I won't be here to enjoy that, but if I could just recommend that you guys think about resurrecting it, because I think it's comfort, information, connectivity for everybody. So River Edge community, everyone, I thank you so very much for all your help and support.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you.
We're coming to the 5 o'clock hour. I also have to jump off in a little while for another Zoom call. Well,
Can I just,
yes.
one thing? I was going to send a email to the emergency services commanders, which would be, as far as I'm concerned, the DPW, the ambulance corps, the fire department, the police department, concerning what I talked about with the blackout. So if, instead of sending the email, if you guys have any ideas, could you send them to me, and at some future point in date, maybe we can just have a Zoom meeting. Maybe I'll be better at it by that time. Thank you. That's it.
You're welcome. Is there anything else we need to say, Superintendent Melito?
Yeah, just so everybody knows here, we've been working with the police department, with Casey, Lieutenant Walker, and Mark Abadi. With inception with the generators and all that, we've got a pretty good handle on all that moving forward. We've worked with them to get the same generators to understand what each faction has moving forward. Also, we've also been talking about other options in with Ron with possible signboards in the future, just in case power goes out. And other options, I've been talking with the mayor about updating some of our signboards in front of the Borough Hall, that we can look into possibly either going solar on them. That could be another option, so they wouldn't have to be generalized. But again, all the entities with OEM, police, and myself, we've all been looking into that, and also with the mayor and council, talking here and there with, you know, some of those people. So moving forward, I believe there is a pretty good plan that Ron put in place with Sergeant Abadi, Chief Walker, or Lieutenant Walker, and of course Ron. So just wanted to say that, yeah, that's where we're at with all that. So that's it.
Anybody else? Well, I thank you all. We'll meet again this time next year unless there's an emergency meeting, which I don't foresee us needing to do. I really appreciate everyone coming. Thank you. Michelle, if you can send the recording to Ron, so Ron can then forward that recording, or at least the link, to those who are not able to be present, that would be great. Lieutenant Walker, when you get a chance, I need to touch base with you about something later today. I'm going to give you a call. So I got to go on another Zoom. It's a good thing, but so I just wanted to give you a heads up. I'm going to try giving you a call in about 2 hours if you're available.
Sure.
All
Absolutely.
right. Thank you all, and we appreciate your coming. Take care.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you. Good night.